Hi, I'm Carolyn, and I'm here with Jonathan today to talk about terms and conditions placed on SAMHSA grant awards. First, let's go through the basics of what terms and conditions are. Any grant issued with funding from SAMHSA is subject to terms and conditions that are listed in the Notice of Award. Some of those terms and conditions will be tracked, which means they will be set up in the ERA Commons system with scheduled tasks and due dates. You'll need to submit documentation by those due dates through a special page in ERA Commons to complete the tasks and to satisfy the track terms and conditions placed on your grant award. Now that I've covered the basics, Jonathan, can you tell me a little bit more detail about terms and conditions? What are the most important things SAMHSA grantees should know?
Sure. To make sure you're submitting documentation on time, you should know these four main topics. 1. How to access the View Terms Tracking Details page, where all your terms and conditions are listed in the system. 2. How to tell which terms are tracked, or in other words, have one or more tasks with due dates set up for that term that require you to submit documentation through the View Terms Tracking Details page. 3. How to submit documentation to complete tasks through the View Terms Tracking Details page. And finally, 4. What happens after submission, and, if applicable, how to revise a submission.
So, where can I find the View Terms Tracking Details page?
Let me show you. First off, you'll need to be the project director or have a signing official account with the grantee organization. Next, log into ERA Commons and access the Status tab. If you're a project director, click on List of Applications/Awards. Once it brings up a list, click the plus icon next to a grant to see all the applications and awards for that grant that you have access to. Once you see the application you want, click on View Terms Tracking in the Action column to open the View Terms Tracking Details page. If you're a signing official, the steps are a little different. First, access the Status tab. Next, input search criteria to search for your grant. You can use the IC code and serial number. Once you've entered your search criteria, click Search to bring up a list of results. Click the View Terms Tracking link in the Action column to be taken to the View Terms Tracking Details page for a grant.
Okay, so now that I'm on the View Terms Tracking Details page, what do I do? What can I find on this page?
The top half of the page will contain some overview information about your grant, including your SAMHSA Government Project Officer and Grants Management Specialist. In the bottom half of the page, you'll find information about the terms and conditions placed on your grant award. It's important to know that terms and conditions are filtered based on the budget period they were applied to, so terms applied to your first budget period won't be listed on the same budget period tab as terms that were applied to your second budget period. You can change your budget period by clicking on a different tab, and you can expect to receive new terms and conditions for each budget period you are awarded funding. Even when you do receive new terms and conditions, you should still check your prior budget periods to make sure there aren't any unresolved terms that require your attention. A budget period ending does not mean the terms are no longer applicable or are resolved. Now let's look at the contents of the table at the bottom. This table shows you all the terms for the budget period selected. You can click on the plus icon next to a term to expand it and view all of the tasks set up for it, or you can click on the name of the term to be able to read the full term contents. Next, check out the due date status column in the bottom half of the page. The status listed here lets you know what the overall status of the next task for a term is. If you see something says not tracked, it means that the term hasn't been set up with tracked due dates. In other words, you don't need to submit anything on this page for that term, but you should still check the term to see if submission is required somewhere else. Other statuses you might see include unresolved, in review, resolved, archived unresolved, and closed. Unresolved means that there are tracked due dates, and the next upcoming one hasn't been resolved yet. This could be because you haven't submitted documentation or because SAMHSA has not reviewed it yet. If SAMHSA does begin to review a submission, the status will change to in review. If your submission satisfies the term, the status will then be changed to resolved. If the term wasn't resolved and the budget period has fully passed, then the status will change to archived unresolved. The final status is closed, which means that the task was closed but not resolved, and you won't be able to submit or change any documentation for it.
Great, that makes sense. When I'm ready to submit materials, how do I do that?
If you need to submit documentation for a task, click on the Action button in the Actions column and click Prepare Documentation. This will take you to a file upload page. You can upload up to 10 PDFs, each with an individual file size limit of 6 megabytes. Use the Upload button to open a list of your files, select the file you need, and click Open to upload the file and have it appear in the file list. Although you upload files individually, SAMHSA will be able to view them as a consolidated PDF once they are submitted or view the individual files.
Can I upload other file types?
No, the files have to be PDFs. You can also make comments, either with files or as the entirety of your submission. This could be some additional clarification about your documentation to let SAMHSA know what you've uploaded or any other useful information. You can also preview the files you've already uploaded by clicking the View button, or view the consolidated PDF SAMHSA will have by clicking the Preview button. The consolidated PDF will have a table of contents page with your comment, followed by each of your uploaded files. If you need to remove a file, go back and click the Delete button next to it. If it turns out that you want to remove all of your uploaded files, you can use the Remove Draft button. This will remove all of your uploaded files and any comments entered and let you start over. If you're not ready to submit yet, but want to keep any files uploaded or comments entered, click Save. This will save your changes and let you come back to your draft later. If you don't want to save your changes, click Back. Once you've uploaded or commented everything you need to and are ready to have SAMHSA review your submission, press Submit to lock down your documentation and notify SAMHSA you've submitted it.
Okay, let's say I uploaded my documentation and hit submit. What happens next?
Your submission status will change to Submitted, and SAMHSA will review your submission. You'll also receive a confirmation email that night confirming your submission that looks like this. If documentation for several terms were submitted that day, they'll be combined into one email. One of two things should happen next. Either your documentation is sufficient for the task it was uploaded for, and SAMHSA will mark the task resolved, or they will send it back to you for you to make changes or additions to your documentation. If SAMHSA mark the task resolved, you may be issued a revised notice of award reflecting the removal of the task. If you have a submission returned, you'll receive an email that looks like this, and any comments entered by SAMHSA staff about why your documentation was returned will be included.
Okay, but if I get a submission returned to me, how do I edit it?
You can edit return submissions the same way you prepare them originally. Head back to the Terms Tracking page, find the right task, and select Revise Documentation in the Actions menu. This will take you back to the file upload page with your original documentation still there. If you need to, you can remove the previous documentation or comment, or you can add new files and update the comment. When you're ready to resubmit, click the Submit button again. You can tell your documentation was submitted by checking the Submission Status column, which is now changed to Submitted.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. This was great information, and thank you all for listening.